today and how we thank you for another opportunity to do good for our city. We ask you to come in our meeting and touch our hearts, souls, and minds and be acceptable in our sight. Lord, whatever we do here today, let it not be shape, form, or fashion, but let it be to help our city and to move our city forward. And at the end of the day, that we would bring you some glory. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilwoman Taylor?
Present.
Councilman Brooks?
Here.
Councilman Salvatore? Councilman Butcher? Councilman Jackson? Councilman Green?
I'm here.
And Councilwoman Bowles?
Present.
I got a message that Councilman Telefaro will be out today, and also Councilman Jackson will be out today. Tomorrow, we will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Administrative Conference meeting Monday, March 13, 2023, and the City Council meeting Tuesday, March 14, 2023. Does any member of the council have any awards, recognition, or distinguished guests not to exceed 15 minutes?
I will on tomorrow.
I will tomorrow as well. Anyone else? Mr. Mayor, do you have any awards, recognition, or distinguished guests not to exceed 15 minutes?
I do not, Mr. Chairman. Do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have DOTD here today. I'm sorry that Mr. Telefaro has asked that they would be present today. And they wanted to inform us about the expressway, I believe.
They got it? Okay. We do have a PowerPoint. I think they're maybe loading up on that screen. And some copies for y'all as well.
No.
Okay. My name is Erin Buchanan. I'm a public information officer for the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development in this district. I'm here with Mr. Kevin Blunk. He's one of our area engineers. We were invited here by Councilman Taliaferro to give kind of a preliminary update on the I-20 rehabilitation project that is upcoming for this area. So just a few high-level project details. We have this as a tentative let date, although at this point it's pretty much set in stone as May 10th. The project plans are complete and stamped, and so the project will go to bid at that time. We anticipate producing a notice to proceed in July, estimated, and then the contractor will likely have a 30 to 90-day calendar day assembly period. So this is the project to reconstruct that portion in Bossier City, as well as provide some patching and repairs to sections in Shreveport as well. We expect this to be about a 600-day calendar day project. Right now, the cost is estimated to be $93 million. Yeah.
But the days are bid.
Yeah, so that's our estimate of length of time. The contractor will bid on the number of days in the project. So the total limits of the project are from Pines Road in Shreveport to I-220 in Bossier. Again, the rehabilitation portion of that is from Industrial in Bossier to about Benton Road, just west of Benton Road. And then we've got outside patching in areas on the east end of that and on the west end of that portion of the project as well. So not to go too deep into the weeds for you, but this slide kind of shows you where the patching portions are going to be. Well, the next slide actually shows you where, but we'll have that on Pines Road to Monk House and I-49 to Market on that portion of the project in the Caddo Parish side of it. And on the Bossier Parish side of it, we'll have patching on I-20 from Industrial Drive to Red Chute Bayou, which is just east of I-220. Included in that as well will be joint sealing and pavement markings too. So,
And it's short term, so that means it's nighttime closure.
yeah, nighttime closures on that portion of it to, help reduce the impact to daytime travel. There will be quite a bit, of course, impact when we get to the rehabilitation portion of it, but the nighttime work for the patching is what's anticipated. And then on the next slide kind of shows you some locations. The yellow pins kind of point to the various patching locations on I-20. Equals to about 122,000 feet of joint sealing, 5 miles of striping, and the addition of 22 interstate shields. The shields that are actually on the pavement that notate I-49, I-20 as you're driving along. And this is, again, the patching from Pines Road to Monk House. That kind of gives you that idea of that. And then as far as, traffic control and preparing for that, preparing for any crashes that may happen within the construction zone, we will have additional motorist assistance patrol. Those are our MAP trucks that are operated throughout the city already, but we'll have additional as part of this project. And then we'll also have a tow truck that is dedicated just to this project as well. So obviously the hope is to clear crashes as quickly as possible if they do happen within the construction zone, and to keep traffic flowing as much as possible. Traffic through the project will be urged to take I-20. So if you're traveling from Texas on through, you're going to be urged via signage to utilize I-20 and loop around rather than adding to vehicle traffic within the construction zone that's not really necessary to be there. So part of that also is going to be a preemptive warning system or a queue detection system that's going to be on both the eastbound and westbound sides of the east and west sides, and then on the eastbound and westbound directions of travel. That will include, on the eastbound side, that will include 16 radar sensors and 12 warning signs, and you can see the various locations there in your presentation. And then again on the westbound side, 16 radar sensors and 5 warning signs. And so this in real time will let people know what the queue, meaning the length of congestion, is looking like, encouraging people to take an alternate route. And obviously the overall point is to chiefly improve safety throughout the construction project and to keep delays and queuing to as much of a minimum as possible. We know that's going to occur no matter what, because when you reduce the interstate down to 1 lane or reduce any kind of lane, put a lane restriction in place, of course you're going to have congestion. And so that part is going to be difficult for everyone. But the more pieces that we can put in place here to try to alleviate that and ease that issue, we're definitely putting into place. And we do have an option in the contract for our project engineer to add more of those preemptive warning signs if necessary. So on the next sign, we'll also be, of course, utilizing our permanent message boards that are already on the interstate. Those will be utilized to give you travel times and alert you of any issues in the construction zone. And then we'll also be adding 9 portable construction or changeable message signs that will be utilized as well. They won't say those messages, that's just a little comedic relief, but they will have some useful messaging on them for as the project goes along. And so not to go too deep into this, obviously, y'all's interest is in the Shreveport side of things, but even when the Bossier rehabilitation portion of this project is underway, obviously the traffic queuing and congestion is going to impact the Shreveport side of the river as well. So that just kind of gives you a look at the various phases. Phase 1, we'll be working on inside lanes, barrier rails. We'll have a temporary diversion pavement in place. On to the next slide, phase 2, again, will be on the outside lane. Phase 3, we're going to be shifting traffic once again. And you can look more in depth at that at your leisure. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Again, moving on to the next slide of phase 3, there'll be various ramp closures in place. Of course, we're not going to have like Industrial Drive and Airline Drive and Old Minden Road all closed at the same time. Obviously, those will be constructed through phasing, stages. But we did want to give you an idea of when those can be expected. And once this project goes to bid and is awarded, we'll have much more information, concrete information on this to let everybody know, what to be expected for sure. And then this is just a list of upcoming projects that may impact traffic on I-20, not to be constructed necessarily at the same time as this, but just so you can have a look ahead a little bit of what you can expect along the I-20 corridor for both Bossier and Caddo parishes over the next few years. And then if there are any questions, we'll be glad to take those from any members of the council or anybody else. We appreciate y'all letting us come or asking us to come and provide this information. And again, once the project goes to bid and is awarded, we'll have a concrete start date of construction and all those types of details that people really, want to know. And we'll be, of course, be providing those.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, do you have any other business related to city business?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Does any member have any questions concerning property standard for Mr. Green? Anyone? Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Clark, will you have a master plan report? Thank you. Does everyone receive the budget and actual financial report? Public hearing, there's none. Mr. Doug, will there be any legislation added tomorrow?
No, sir.
Today, we will hear public comments on non-agenda items as well as agenda items. The vice chair will control the names and the time.
Have 3 minutes to speak. John Glover.
Good evening. John Glover, 9100 Walker Road, apartment 217, 71118 is the zip. I come before you all to get clarification on an item or items that are on for second reading and final passage, beginning with resolutions. Resolution number 45 deals specifically with Resilient Park. What is Resilient Park? And as it is going to impact seemingly Greenwood Road in some aspect of creating or constructing a road, I'd like to know the particulars of that. I see that there are dollars that the state has.
Mr. Kraft.
Hello,
Mr. Kraft.
hello, Ms. Glover.
I apologize.
The money, whereas it's located where SWEPCO is building a $100 million plant out there.
Okay.
And so in the contract, I'm sure it was negotiated that our part of the deal is to do that for a road.
Okay, I just wanted to know where was the location of the Resilient
You know
Park?
where the Greenwood Road, you know where the old mall used to be out there on Industrial?
Yes.
Then it's gonna be right next door to that.
Oh, okay.
It'll go down right on the side by those woods.
I know
and
exactly
there's a
where you're
street
speaking.
right there.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then ordinance number, 26. And it deals with the amending of the Sport-Tran budget. Now, my question was, we're just 3 months into 2023, and there are 7 items on that how does it read? Second reading and final passage for amending the budgets. And you will see that the budgets demonstrated by each of these ordinances address different things. Now, I do understand that some may be companions to other, but this number 26, I like to understand it a little bit better. There are a total of $536,500 that we're going to be addressing. To what extent and how would those dollars be allocated with regards, and I did see the biomedical whatever they call that. But just wanted to know, and then too, while you're adding that or reading that, give me, please, if you will, an explanation as to the expiration of the free ride on the Sport-Tran buses. Because if we can take $536,000 out of that budget, for whatever reason it is being allocated for, Could not some of those dollars maintain or stay in that budget to continue the free ride? Because as everyone knows, inflationary prices have just skyrocketed and they're not stopping. And if this can indeed accommodate those who do not have transportation, say to get down here, then that would be a great tool for them to be able to utilize. Those were the things that I looked at, and again, I wanted to bring to you all's attention and ask, and I thank the chairman for giving me the explanation he did on Resilient Park and giving me the particulars. I had read it, but I did not know specifically the location. Thank you, and
Is Mr.
God bless you.
Hold on, Ms. Glover. Is Mr. Washington here?
Mr. Washington's out of town today.
Okay, can you explain to her the Sport Trend Capital Project so she would have the answer to that? And I do think the free rides may be 2 more years. I could be wrong. And I think part of that comes from a grant from the federal government, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Would you like me to explain it now or wait till we get to the agenda part?
You can wait till you get to the amendment.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll
sure.
get down to the line and then we'll
Okay.
explain it to you, Ms. Glover.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Joshua Hanson.
Good afternoon, council. My name is Joshua Hanson. I live at 715 Ackland Street in Shreveport. And I just want to say thank you to a couple of y'all's employees. Several of them are here. Chief Smith sent quite a few people to help us with the Queensboro cleanup, your property standards team, your public works team. Those guys got out and busted their butt in Miss Bowman's district for us. We cleaned up so much trash in that neighborhood, and those people did just fabulous job for us, and we really appreciate them. Quite a few parish employees as well. Had over 115 volunteers show up for that, so I just wanted you guys to know how wonderful those people did for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Graham.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Catherine Graham, 2058 Ashton Street, Shreveport, Louisiana. My concern is here today about the tickets that were given out on Lakeshore at the school. First, let me say I appreciate Councilwoman Ursula Bowman for talking to you about this. You returned my call, and that's something that you'd hardly ever get done. But I appreciate you calling me back to try to explain to me what was going on, because I did not know what was going on. I also like to address my councilwoman, Tabitha Taylor. She's my councilwoman. I always want to respect her first because she is our councilwoman in my district. And I did too let her know what's going on, and she informed me who I could talk to. So I'm here concerned about, I see where you all are telling people to, if they get tickets, they can vote them out. Well, when we got my ticket, I have 2 tickets I got in one day, the sum of $275. I paid my tickets because if I didn't know anything about it. I paid my tickets doing the right thing first to being a citizen. I don't want to be, I read the citations, and they said if I didn't pay it on that day, they would continue adding money onto the ticket, which I don't have that to give. And I'm calling because I'm down here because I paid my ticket, and I'm hearing things about you voting. If you get a ticket, they'll be voted. Well, I want to find out what's going to happen to the ones that have paid. Like, I paid my ticket. Would I get my money back? If I don't get it back, okay. I just want to know, because I went on and paid it, and after I paid it, that's when all this come along. So I want some information for someone that could tell me about it, and I could just let it alone.
Mr. Dark, can you help us with this?
As far as I know, we stopped issuing tickets for some time on Lakeshore at the request of almost everyone until the Blue Line folks could get out over, I believe, over the spring break and do some new signage there. I actually drove by there during spring break, and I don't think they were through, but they had signs everywhere on there. But I do not know of any provision to repay anyone who paid tickets.
Okay, that's what I had explained to Ms. Graham. and I hate it, and I apologize. Anyone that paid those tickets, I did ask Blue Line to be considerate and void out the citations because we didn't have all of our ducks in a row.
Okay.
But I didn't have any authority over refunding anyone. So, did you call the Blue Line number?
Yes, when I called them about it, when you all said they were voiding tickets, and I gave them my numbers on my my citations, they told me that my name wasn't there, was one of the ones they didn't void. And at the time, I didn't know why, but now I guess I know why, because I paid it. You know, so I just want to put this behind me. But if I could get my money, you know, I want to get it. If I can't, well, you know, I haven't got any more tickets, but I have gone that way the other day. Now you see, you can't help but see
Yes, ma'am.
on each side all the signs. But at that time when I got this ticket, you could not see that sign. I don't run lights. I mean, I respect, you know, going into a school zone.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's why I'm here, to find out, you know, if they're not gonna pay anything, okay, it's gone, you know. But when I got this ticket, I did not know that I was, you know, it was a school zone. And I wanna find out, when you all, are they gonna put a light? Will they be putting? Yeah, will they be putting it there?
Yes.
Because I don't see it there. It's not there yet. You know, they're saying something after school break, they were gonna do something. Well, yeah, you see. You can't, a blind man can see the signs they got there now. I wish they would have had those signs before. And I would have known not to go down, you know, like that. But it's not there. And I don't even go that way no more because I don't want a ticket.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Dark, is there any way that because it looks, just listening to what she's saying, there were people that did the same exact thing and got theirs abated, and she did the right thing by paying hers, and now she's being punished, and that is a lot of money. Is there any discussions that we can have with Blue Line about refunding her money?
You're probably asking me a lawyer question that I need to get some advice from them on that one, okay?
Well,
Because Blue Line's gonna do whatever we tell them to do, I think, but because we've already got, I mean, the money's already, you know, been allocated, whatever. I'd have to ask an attorney if we have the authority to.
Well, it just seems to me that she did the right thing by sending in her tickets. And then somebody that may not have sent them in and got them abated, you know, I hate that she had to pay it, and maybe somebody that got one same day didn't have to pay it. It just doesn't seem fair to me. But if y'all would check into that, I would appreciate it.
We can try.
I appreciate it too.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I got 2 tickets in the same day. One $150 and the other one $125.
Well,
You see what I'm saying?
I see
And I'm
where you're coming
retired,
from.
you know what I'm saying? And we trying to make it too. And I want to abide the law. I'm not going to jail, so I paid my ticket.
Yes, ma'am.
And I did what I was supposed to do. And that's
Well-
what I'm trying to see, because I appreciate you.
Let's see what the city attorney and Blue Line come up with, and I'm sure if there's a refund to be sent out, they'll send it to you.
And I did send the ticket, you know, you have
Yes, I have your
my
tickets.
receipt. I have it too.
Yeah,
where
and I have your
sent.
phone number, so if I find
Okay.
out something before I
Thank
call
you, guys. Thank you all so
Thank
much.
you.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ken Craft. Ken Craft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Ken Kraft, 157 Archer, Shreveport 71105. Miss Brown, my lady friend's got 2 tickets, but it's to see the LSU Lady Tigers in the Final Four. That's the kind of tickets you need. Want to thank the mayor for speaking a week ago tonight and showing us the 6 tax millages which are on the ballot. Good luck, Mr. Butcher. Very important, over 11, it's a lot of money, and it's already appropriated, so please vote for that, yes. A week from today is 55 years since Dr. King was killed, and 5 years ago, on 4/4/18, I was privileged to recite I Have a Dream for the late Cedric Murphy, gentleman in a wheelchair, and 2 friends, just the 3 of them. Had him in tears. They really enjoyed it. I didn't know he'd passed 16 months later, but he made a comment to me that day that stayed with me. He said, "We've made progress, Ken, in civil rights, but we really haven't arrived until some city," and he mentioned Portland, Seattle, when some city names a street in honor of Dr. King in an all-white neighborhood. That has not happened as far as I know, even in the most liberal bastions in the country. So we've made progress, but we have a long way to go. And talked to an officer friend of mine. They responded very nicely Friday night, and he mentioned an episode of Blue Bloods, and he couldn't remember it. I said, "What's the quote?" He said, "Retired Commissioner Henry Reagan tells Jamie and Commissioner Frank, better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And I immediately said, that's the Groundhog episode, season 2, episode 2, because I just associated that comment with the groundhog looking up, and the groundhog would rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. A couple quick reminders: city charter review, whenever the mood moves y'all. It's been years, decades, long overdue. The warning siren drones that Minden has, and Benton and Spring Hill and Homer, but not Shreveport. And at some point, and RJ was on our committee for juvenile justice citizens advisors, fairly soon, I think next month, the commission, Cattle Commission, will vote on our recommendation. I'm not going to give you the details. I don't think it's public, but anyway, we'd like some support from the council, even if you just do it as individuals. We have to improve juvenile justice. It's one of the big problems that leads to the Logan Street and downtown incidents. They're related. And this morning, just getting out in the garden and seeing the yellow butterflies and the bumblebees, it was pretty cool. Finally, come watch me tomorrow at the Broadmoor Library at 10 o'clock. I'm going to recite Gettysburg Declaration, I Have a Dream, and the Constitution. It's free, no refreshments.
Jake Flukers. Jake Flukers.
Good afternoon. 741 Cambridge Place, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71108. I'm not a preacher, teacher, politician, or entertainer. I'm a retired union blue-collar worker. And I'm here to talk about police reform. Police reform, what we have is, I'm asking for a citizen review board. We have a review board in Shreveport, but police reviewing police. So I would like to see that the citizen of Shreveport will review any kind of complaint from the police. Another reason why I'm here is that before this damn virus got around, I had 5 friends that died from this virus. And 2 of them in particular that I remember, they died early in this virus thing. And one of the last conversations we had, we were talking about, they were telling me that they lived all their life in Shreveport. Only time they left Shreveport when they was drafted or went to the service. And when they got back, they felt uncomfortable driving in Shreveport, knowing that the policeman could harass them and nothing they can do about it. And nothing will be done. They still haven't been done anything about it. So I would like to see if we can work together and see if we can get some kind of police reform that the people in Shreveport could feel comfortable. You know, and is not I don't think it's that big of a deal to do it. Thank you. Any question? No? I'll be setting up a meeting with you, Mr. Mayor. Nice meeting.
Marvin Muhammad. Has 3 minutes, sir.
Marvin Muhammad, 1116 Prospect Street. The scripture says, that the unbelieving and the fearful will have a place in a lake that burns with fire. And what's interesting about the 21st chapter of Revelations, verse 8, that one of his companions of that fire is the liar. See, 2,000 years ago, Jesus had a righteous man. He had scribes following him wherever he went, sifting his words, his manner, and what he did. All good. 2,000 years later today, in the present, we still is dealing with that same mindset. 2 articles. One that was in the, I think, the 318 forum that attacked black leadership. Talked about they was incompetent. Let me get some of the adjectives they use. Lack preparation. Lack temperament. Imagine that. And the Inquisitor, that paper questioned the councilman from District E ability to move forward with legislation that deals with the city council and that house and that department. But it's surprising that neither of those writers have said anything about administration that has circumvented the Shreveport City Charter and this council by us having now almost 3 months of CAO that hasn't been confirmed, which is against the city charter. Interesting that hasn't been mentioned, but yet we can't have a director of council affairs. We can't move forward with a clerk of council. 45 years ago, just 45 years ago, this council, this city had no black leadership, none. When our city mayor was on the council, his 8 years, those years represented year 5 through 12 of black leadership having a voice in this city. We had none. Temperament, and I close. The scripture says, be ye angry, but sin not. And don't allow the sun to set on your wrath. Well, it's currently 3:30. So be angry in this room, in this demonic department. I beg of you, and I speak of those council members from A, G, F, and E that stood firm. Please continue in that way. Thank you.
That concludes public comments.
Thank you. We will have on tomorrow executive appointment, Assistant City Attorney Edward Jones. There are no items under the consent agenda for introduction or adopted. Ms. Duck, would you proceed with regular legislation, agenda legislation?
Yes, sir. 166 of 2021 is the TIF district for part of District F. I was told by your clerk you were considering postponing that again?
Yes, we're going to postpone it until the last meeting in June. I talked to the folk that's working with me on it, and we are going to postpone it until the last meeting in June.
Thank you, sir. Resolution 40 authorizes the mayor to accept a donation of approximately $688,000 from AEP relative to the Resilient Park project in order to provide enough funding to bid it. And I believe there is an amendment. Let me see what it says real quickly. Oh, it's just basically substituting the language. Instead of having SWEPCO, it's AEP. That's all that amendment does. Okay, let me get back to the other screen. I'm sorry. 41 authorizes the mayor to execute a cooperative endeavor agreement and various other documents associated with getting a grant of about $5.8 million from the state for water sector program funds. This allows us to do some remedial repair work at several of the elevated tanks, and perhaps will allow some other work at some of the ground storage stations, depending on how the money turns out.
Mr. Dart, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Please, please paint these water towers with some of that money. It's embarrassing, the one on I-49, and I know the one in, I think it's in your district. I mean, when you're coming into Shreveport, it looks like something out of World War II or something. They're just horrible. So, I mean, I hope we can get some money to paint them.
Okay. 42 is the one we introduced last time that gives basically giving council approval for the mayor to purchase various items of insurance for the year beginning April 1st. Tyler Smith and Carlene Patterson are here from the line. If you have some questions, we will give you tomorrow an amendment. The numbers have changed over the last 2 weeks to our favor, fortunately, down from about 8.2 million down to about 7.6 or so million as of a few minutes ago. But they are here to answer any questions. While they're coming up, I just want you to know, I was in on a meeting last Friday where we talked about how that was going. And it's hard to imagine how complicated getting insurance is these days. Just on the property part of our package alone, I think we're dealing with something almost 24 insurance companies just to get all the coverage and the various layers that we have. Some of the companies have as little as 5% of a certain piece of business, but that's what they would buy. So that's where we are. So they're here, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
The good news, Mr. Dark, it actually went down while we were sitting there.
Well, that's
so.
all the better.
Even more, so. Any questions at all? Just a couple things. I'll just keep it general just for some comments. Oh, sorry about that. Just to keep a couple, just some general comments. There were a couple of challenges, as Mr. Dark indicated, the numbers have gone down in the last couple of weeks. Some of the things that, we have some improvements that we're making. We've identified different gaps in coverage and also some ways to really streamline the program as well. So we're continuing to work it, and we'll probably keep continuing to work it until 12:01 a.m. on April 1st. So if you do have any questions, we're happy to address them. No? Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. 43 authorizes a request to be made to the State Mineral and Energy Board to seek public bids for an oil and gas and mineral lease involving some property in District A, approximately 47 acres. If the bids are received in the minimum amount, we get about $3,000 an acre, which would be a little over $141,000.
And for the record, this would not affect the Cross Lake water supply, is that correct?
That is correct. Resolution 44 is authored by Councilmember Taylor. This recognizes April 2023 as Autism Acceptance Month to recognize and honor those who are on the autism spectrum disorder scale. Resolution 45 is about the Resilient Project. It's a resolution that is required by the state in order to bid the project. This is a mostly state capital outlay and parish funded project, but basically the state, because it has any money in it, says somebody other than us is on the hook to pay everything on the project above the $1.so million that they've got in it. So that's why this resolution is there, because they won't take bids without it.
Any questions or comments on any of those items? Ms. Dark, would you proceed with introduction of resolutions not to be adopted prior to April 11, 2023?
Yes, sir. 46 authorizes the use of certain equipment by the North Shreveport Business Association. This is a 3-year contract. They've been using our tables, chairs, and other things for their crawfish boil and Heroes Banquet, and this would just continue that. 47 authorizes an agreement between the city and the Overton Brooks VA Medical Center for a temporary construction servitude and a permanent construction servitude. VA has decided they're going to build on their property a couple of water storage tanks so that if things go like they did last December, that they will have some emergency water. Because it's right next to the area where our property on the Parkway borders theirs, in order to do a retaining wall so it all works out, they need a little servitude so that they can do that and do the construction, and we have no objections to that. 48 authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with Baker Tilly US LLP. Basically, this is redevelopment advisory services in connection with the REV project. We're continuing to try to do our due diligence. The not to exceed cost is $150,000. It's probably going to be less than that. They will do only work that we recommend that they do in specific tasks.
Mr. Dart,
Yes.
I did talk to the city attorney, and she was going to check on this to see if a RFP was needed.
Okay.
Okay, and she'll let us know tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Dort, will you proceed with introduction of ordinance not to be adopted prior to April 11, 2023?
Yes, sir. 30 through 35 are all budget ordinances in one form or another, so we'll try to go through them in whatever detail you ask us to do. 30 is an amendment to the general fund, $10,000 for a dive boat for the fire department. It's sponsored by Councilmember Taylor. 31 amends the general fund budget to provide a little over $133,000 to the police department for communications equipment for the special response unit, some new equipment for the interview rooms, and some equipment to allow them to download body camera footage more efficiently. That is also sponsored by Councilmember Taylor. 32 amends the budget, again, for general fund. This one adds $10,680,000 in revenue, mostly from revising the sales tax numbers. There's some small adjustments in a few areas, but the major changes add money for street improvements and blight removal and litter pickup and street lighting. It also provides additional funding where there wasn't quite enough in the budget to fund retiree health costs. We may, before this passes in 2 weeks, we may come back and do an amendment for the additional insurance costs that have been identified, or we may do that as a separate ordinance, but that's at least possible 2 weeks from now. 33 amends the streets fund budget. We're actually providing $12 million more in funding for this year's street program. $9.5 million from the general fund, a little over $1.4 million, I believe, from the SWEPCO revenue that comes in for that fund, and we're also taking all the funding that is in that fund's reserve, so we can get to a total of $12 million. 34 amends the capital improvements budget. Basically, this is the companion to the streets budget, so we're adding $12 million in the streets fund. There's also a small error in a prior ordinance that's being corrected without changing what was supposed to be there. 35 amends the riverfront budget. We're doing two things there. We are trying to begin to wean the general fund off of the riverfront fund so we can use more of that for economic development. What this is doing is reducing that contribution to the general fund by $750,000, putting $500,000 of that in the reserve, and then putting $250,000 into professional services so we can pay for the Baker Tilly contract, and we can pay for the contract with the firm that's doing the work on the Amtrak application.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Chief Reese.
Chief Reese, are you here?
Chief Reese.
He might be outside.
I have some questions on 32. Councilman Butcher, I think you can attest to this when we've had some water rescues that we needed for the fire department, along with some other individuals that attempted suicide. So with this particular request, I think that it is imperative in the midst of public safety that we have our own fleet of equipment, because the calls are not decreasing, they are increasing. So can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. So our Shreveport Dive Team, 60 years in existence. We're seeing an increase in call suicides, especially right there at the train trestle and Texas Street Bridge. As you know, we had 2 incidents last year, one resulting in a death on Cross Lake. But we ended up using citizens' boats in both of those incidents to make that rescue. I made a promise to the mayor and the CAO that I would find alternative methods until we were able to get a boat. Talked with Chief Smith on last week, and they volunteered one of their boats that is down at Cross Lake. However, that requires us to go get it, hook it up, and take it to Red River. Caddo Sheriff's Office is not in the water anymore. They keep their boat at 4910 North Market, and that requires them to go get deputies and then bring the boat. And then, of course, we have our central fire station that has always had a boat. Right now, we have some inflatable boats, but it's not safe to dive off of. Safe for a quick rescue, but not safe to dive off of. We've also I've reached out to the Phillips family through a mutual friend. Of course, they lost someone in Cross Lake. Maybe something they're willing to fund. But right now, we're about a year behind in getting a boat. And if we continue to wait, we'll be even further behind securing a boat. We have a couple of options where we're trying to decrease that price, but however, we have to have the ball. We have something.
Councilman Butcher, I think last year, myself, you, Councilman Bowman, talked about the urgency in this when I was asking Chief Reese about it, and then the recent incident that we had with you all having to get out in the water, and then as well as the man who fell over the other day on Cross Lake. I think that those things were imperative. Public safety is the #1 priority for government, so I think that it is imperative, and I'm asking my colleagues to please support this piece of legislation.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman Taylor, I'm glad that you put this up. I'm 100% behind it. Seconds count in a situation like that, and for y'all to have to scramble to try to find a boat or go get it from SPD or whatever, you haven't. And also, your dive team needs to be familiar with their equipment, and that when they're not familiar with their equipment, that takes time. And so, and you're right, y'all had something last week, right? The guy fell off by Bird Island.
Yes.
So I'm 100% for it. Anything that y'all need, we have so much water, and it touches pretty much all of our districts. We have so much water in this city that we should have a full fleet of whatever you need to be able to do water rescue. So, anything else that you need, I'm 100% behind it, and I definitely support this legislation and encourage everybody up here to do it. It's money well spent.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Thank y'all.
Chief Smith. I'm sorry, is Chief Smith or Chief White? Chief White, Deputy Chief White.
I'm raising my hand. I need to talk to y'all.
Sir, the time for speaking is over. You can come back tomorrow if it's an agenda item. If not, that time has passed.
Mr. Arsenault.
Sir, if you break out again, I'm going to ask that you be led out of the chamber.
Well, you don't have to.
Sir, would you?
I'll leave myself.
Thank you.
Mr. Arsenault, those lights on Louisiana Avenue, they need to be turned on. I'm gone. I'm gone. Turn the lights on.
Smith, I know last year during this time when Councilman Green and I were out on the scene, again, Councilman Butcher, you remember this as well, and one of the things that we did talk about was what we needed for our special response teams, as well as the, I call it the tanker, that we pretty much borrow from everyone else, and we wanted to make sure that we got our own. But I'm deeply concerned with the calls that we are receiving, and I think everyone is fully aware what went on this weekend, but also I believe probably 10 calls that you all had last year from your special response team. When I ask you about this equipment, I actually need for you to tell us how important this is. And again, this is another item in the interest of public safety that I am asking support from my colleagues on. Public safety, I'm gonna repeat it again, public safety is the #1 priority of government. So if you would, sir.
Okay, thank you so much last year for providing resources for us to get a Bearcat. It is on the way. Just this past week, we had a barricaded robbery individual out off of 70th Street, and where we needed one, and we called Bossier City. They had been helping us over the course of years, but they did advise us we'll come this time, but we're going to have an MOU, some kind of agreement, before we can continue to work with y'all and bring our equipment over here. So we're working on getting that done until ours arrive. A special response team, SWAT, as most people may affectionately know it, takes specially trained. They are special people, and it takes very special equipment in order for them to operate and be safe. Communication equipment for those SWAT team members is very important. You'll see some have headsets on. You'll see some have microphones that connect to their throat so they can communicate with each other and leave their hands free to do other things. So we don't currently have that. All our folks have is a walkie-talkie. So if you pick up a walkie-talkie or a microphone, that's a hand that's probably needed doing something else.
So are those life and death situations?
Yes, ma'am, can be very, very well be, absolutely. So we're asking for $29,000 to upgrade. We have 2 teams of people to get them outfitted with the communications equipment that they need. Here, currently at our station, we have to interview people, and to do it right, it has to be recorded in its entirety, both visually and audio-wise. And our equipment that we use is failing, it's outdated, it is connected to all kinds of equipment that's outdated. So we're requesting $21,000 to upgrade those rooms and get them back functional to do our interviews. The other part was we need the installation of more access points. As we all know how important it is to the public and us that there's good body mic coverage, the camera that officers wear on their clothing, and also the videos that's recorded in the cars. Well, at our station, there's access points. Whenever that car turns off of Texas Street or comes on our compound, it automatically begins to download. Well, the system is failing. It has failed, where it should take a car 10 minutes to download. Because so many cars coming in at one time, it's taking hours, and the system is frequently failing. As a matter of fact, it failed over the weekend and just got back up functional here within the last couple of hours. So the $83,000 that we were asking for there will upgrade with more access points to make that quicker so it will function, and hopefully it won't get overloaded with so much demand that it failed like it did this past weekend.
Is that for all of our, fleet, what you're asking for? Was your access points of what you're having?
We got the equipment in the cars. The access point is the equipment on the building and around the building, that when the car pulls up on the compound and that block, it immediately begins to download data from that car into a server.
Okay, all right.
And Chief, that's critical for prosecution. I
Oh,
would say.
absolutely.
So if we're losing data, that could be a bad thing for us. So we need to make sure we've got because we talk about boots on the ground and going around, but the equipment to be able to prosecute these people and get them off the street is just as important.
Right.
So, I'm always have voted for everything that y'all have asked for, and these sound like very, very reasonable requests. And frankly, I'm sad that we hadn't done it before. I think if it had been in the budget for 2023, we probably would have approved it then, so.
I think we were looking at some carryover with some things that they had outlined, and I guess in some way when we're switching from one year to the next, whatever didn't get crossed up, but these were already the ask. When
Right.
we were talking about it last year, as to what they needed from here. So I just want that to be on the record, that council is requesting this and had been requesting this 6 months ago.
This was some of the unfunded
Yes,
I remember
Yes.
the Bearcat was.
Yes.
For sure.
It's on the way.
yes.
Now, could you enter into an agreement? The sheriff's office has one, don't they?
They have an MRAP, which is the military version of it that they secured from the military. Does well in a rural setting, doesn't do quite as well in the setting like we have. The Bearcat is much smaller and much more agile, not as heavy, won't tear up as much, and you can find parts for it. That's the thing about military equipment. Over the course of years, we've been able to secure some military surplus, but a lot of times they'll give you one and they give you 2 or 3 others for parts because you can never find parts to fix them.
I was just thinking in the interim if Bosier's gonna.
Oh, we will ask them, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
When do you think,
But
when do you think it'll be here? Ours?
there's such a demand for them, it's just about a year build. It takes a while. But once I get the MOU between us and Bossier City, I think we'll be fine for the interim. But the sheriff department is always ready to assist in whatever we need.
Well, the last one saved you all, your officers' lives.
Yes, it
Because
did.
of
In the
the
last
fire that
incident.
came out.
In the last incident, the barricaded suspect that was having some mental needs fired 7 shots at the officers, striking the Bearcat several times, struck the U.S. Marshals armored vehicle that they brought out to the scene, and the bullets bounced off. Because of that added protection, officers were not directly in harm's way, and nobody, through their discipline and training, returned fire. I must say, under normal circumstances, when fired upon, the natural instinct is to return fire, and it would not ended up being a very good day for a bunch of us.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
On ordinance 32, I do have some questions for the administration, specifically for the public works of the 500,000. I think that's for the lighting. So please tell me what is occurring with the $5 million that was allocated in the bond issue for interior lighting. Why is there an additional $500,000 that's being asked?
I will have to get you that information tomorrow. What we were trying to do with this money, we have a contractor that does maintenance repairs for us, and we were trying to, in effect, double his money so we could get to more broken lights. I think the $5 million was probably for new lights, but I'll try to find out and give you a better answer
This is
tomorrow.
specified for the interior lightings, and for police and fire, for money that is removed from their budget, what is that? Because that's that's over $1 million. What is that move for?
For whatever reason, the 2023 budget has a lot more money in like group insurance, a couple of accounts like that in payroll that it does not need. And we were trying to make the budget changes balance. So those were the places we chose to take it.
And so in moving those in for personal services, where is it going?
We have, well, for instance, in fire, some of it is going to cover accounts that didn't quite have enough money in it. We were just trying to give you an ordinance where we didn't have to touch the reserve one way or the other to do those. And fire, police, SPAR, and public works had some excess money, primarily in group insurance and places like that, where we could take it where it would not do any harm, would not cause anybody, would not hurt anybody's ability to hire whoever they could hire and go on from there. So that's why we took what we did there.
But we haven't identified all of it, what it's going to be, where it's going to go, correct? Is what I'm asking.
I'm sorry, let me see if I can pull this up and we can try to give you a little better answer. let's see, that's what, 32? Okay. A lot of it is going to that $1 million that we've got to put in general government in order to pay retirees' insurance for this year. That amounts about $1.1 million short for what it needs. And that's the reason that we had to find some money someplace that wasn't likely to be spent otherwise.
So with the money from police and fire, and it's for personal services, which would be for some of the positions that are allocated in those departments, is that correct?
It would be. Both of them have enough vacancies that they're not likely ever to fill. But even that, most of what we did, I just looked at the insurance accounts, and there was enough extra there that without taking any of the salary money and the retirement money and that kind of stuff, we had some available to find, and that $1.1 million is most of where it ended up going. Now, fire ended up for having to have another $300,000 for contractual services, and that's where part of theirs went. We did the same thing in Public Works. We actually were able to take $500,000 out of theirs that we could reallocate to other needs within their department. That's where the litter patrol money is going to go. Lighting came out of that extra money we found in revenue, but the additional money for litter control is actually coming out of salary accounts.
So we did find some additional dollars in these particular areas for litter abatement.
Yes, we did.
Did we not, in the 2023 budget?
Yes, ma'am. If you look into Public Works, we're increasing contractual services by $1 million, and $500,000 of that is lights and $500,000 of that is litter.
But I'm saying it was already dollars in there allocated for that, correct? So you adding some more?
We are adding. We are in effect doubling all of those.
Okay. I want some more clarity on police and fire, because with what we have, with everything that is going on with personnel, that there should be some additional incentive for both of those particular departments is always talking about where we're down and what we could do to go over and incentivize police and fire, especially with everything that they're dealing with the 22 murders that we have and in crime on the street, with public safety being a priority. So that is an area of concern for me. The 168.5 from personal services to contractual services, I'm not sure what that is. And so I would actually like a little bit more detail on this, and the $1.1 million for the insurance for retirees. I'm
Okay,
done, Mr.
I'll
Chairman.
get you something in the morning.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dark, while you're compiling that for Councilwoman Taylor, I would like to know, I mean, basically it just says police and public works available from vacant positions. How many vacant positions for the police department? And I agree with you, there's no way that we're gonna be able to hire in a year period of time the amount of police officers we need. However, I would like to know how much or how many positions we are eliminating to move this money over. Is that kind of what you were asking, Councilwoman?
Yeah, and I
We're
also
not
like
eliminating
to-
a single position to do that.
Yeah, but I also like to know in the interim, with the staff that we already have on the force, what can we do to incentivize them with those
To be able-
dollars?
So-
I'm not trying to lose what we got, what we already have, that we already fighting for. So is there some type of way with that particular money, and looking at the chief and the fire, since they are the #1 people when it comes to public safety, they risking their lives for us every day of what it is that they have to deal with. What is another plan of going in and making sure that we retain what we have, because retention is also a big deal as far as the Shreveport Police Department and the fire department is concerned, or when we're losing out and losing other individuals. So those are the things that I'm looking at when it comes to these dollars that are allocated for this. I'm not trying to cut police in any kind of way.
Oh, no,
In any
no,
kind of-
no.
yeah, in any kind of
I
way.
know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
that we
just
can have it.
I'm just curious as to, okay, so it says available from vacant positions.
Right.
So are these the funded, unfilled positions? So if we were down 131, according to the police chief,
Something like that.
last meeting, are we taking away some of that 131 positions?
You've already, by the time this passes, you will have, I mean, by the time this passes, we're gonna be 3 to 4 months into the year. You've already accumulated some savings that even if you hired all 135 of them next week, you wouldn't run out of money. You'd still have plenty of money in the police or fire budgets to do what we're talking about doing.
Then I like to see that.
Okay.
I like to see that in writing, but also too, what is it with what we have and what are we working on to retain the officers and the fire personnel that we have? That is very, very important to me, given the light of this crime spree that we have right now within the city of Shreveport. And again, without sounding like a broken record, public safety is the first priority. The perception that we have is that the city is not safe. The reality of it is that we're having a shooting and a killing every week. Young people are dying in the street. So I'm trying to find out, when we're moving these particular dollars, especially from these departments, and I'm looking at property standards and public works and SPAR, when we don't always have what we need when it comes to parks and recreation, and we're crying for that. I'm trying to find out how are we making these particular cuts if we saying that there's overage when there are so many other needs that are right there. Blight and litter abatement is not something that we look at unlightly, but what we've done is that we've funded a lot of unfunded needs in the previous budget that we have. So that's why I said I need a little bit more breakdown and what we're saying just other than this right here.
And we'll try to get you something first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Also, Mr. Dark, when you provided for her, what you provided for every member of the
Oh,
council?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I'd like to see it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dark, will you proceed with ordinance on second reading and final passage?
Okay, 22 amends the community development budget. As we told you last time, one of the people who was employed in economic development has gone to work for Ms. Moore, and we're basically transferring money so that person can be paid out of her budget. There is an amendment to that one. There's also a companion amendment to 23, which basically does the general fund part of that. We discovered at some point in the last couple of weeks that the project known as Operation Safe Neighborhoods, that has $100,000 promised for it, has never had that money allocated. So we are doing that with amendment number 1 to both 22 and 23. 24 amends the MPC budget. It basically moves some vacant salary money so that they can buy a vehicle that replaces one of their 3 somewhat dilapidated vehicles. 25 amends the solid waste budget. It's making the budget balanced by adding some general fund money to it, and also allocating the additional landfill revenue that you approved earlier this year. 26, Ms. Glover asked about a while ago, it amends the Sportran budget. All it's really doing, part of the Sportran budget includes the match for several capital projects. For one of those, the Big Raise grant that has like $5.5 million or so in general fund money, and we found an alternate source for $530,000 of that's actually being moved in the capital budget. We're not changing anything at all regarding Sportran operations in this. This just changes one of the funding sources for a capital project that flows through them. And we, at this point, we haven't talked to De Niro lately about the free program, but it seems to work quite well. And assuming it can be afforded in any way, I fully believe we'd be trying to keep it. So I don't know when the grant runs out, but it's certainly done a good thing for them, and we'd like to hold on to it if we all can. 27, close and abandon a part of Old Flournoy Lucas, near Flournoy Lucas and Ellerby, where the old road used to be. Somebody wants to do something on part of that property, and we're allowing them to do so, although retaining some servitude till they move them.
So there's no impact on those 2 or 3 properties that I rode down there and looked at that. It'll stop. Everybody will have access, I guess, is what my question is.
All we're doing is just taking a little piece of the dedication they don't need.
Way towards the west end,
Mhm.
right? Okay.
28 amends the MPC fee structure by putting in a fee for extensions to prior approvals for wireless telecommunications facilities. They did a survey on that. They also put in their ordinance a fee that already exists and permits, $30 for signed demolitions, so somebody could tell without having to go to the permits folks that there was also that fee. 29 amends the capital budget for 2023. It puts that SWEPCO money in for resilient and changes the funding sources for that raised grant to match this Fortran ordinance that comes in front of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is there any table legislation to be removed from the table today?
No, sir.
We have no property standards or ABO appeals to consider today. We have no MPC or ZBA appeals to consider tomorrow. Are there any other appeals, Madam Clerk?
No, sir.
And while we're at that point, I'd like to welcome you and also RJ to formerly be members of the staff. Are there any reports from officers, boards, and committee? Chief Smith? Is Chief Smith still here? Councilwoman Taylor wanted him to come back. I don't know if he left. Okay. Chief Councilwoman Taylor had another question for you.
Chief, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a gang problem in the city of Shreveport?
Have a what now?
A gang problem.
Yes.
Have we made any requests to the U.S. Marshal's Office Gang Task Force?
Yes.
Are they on board and going to assist us as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Will it allow us to apply for any additional resources?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
While he's up here, Mr. Chair, and this is something totally different. In the next week or so, I would like to get an update on the bond money for the police station and the substations. I think having those police officers out in the areas would help tremendously. So, I mean, we're almost a year into this, and I know it doesn't happen overnight.
Okay.
But I would like to know what y'all's plan is.
Yes.
And maybe some sort of timeline as to when we can see some dirt
Okay.
moving.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
We have no executive sessions, but before I do the adjournment, because of all of what's going on in our city and in this country, all of the violence and all of the shootings and all of the killings, I just heard before council meeting, Councilman Butcher, that another school was shot up where kids were. And what I'd like for us to do before this meeting is adjourn today. If you believe in God, if you believe that He has the power to make the conditions better, I would just ask that you would stand for a word of silent prayer, and then I will do the adjournment. Amen. Thank you. If there's nothing else to come before this body, we stand adjourned.